Ага, воно все працює. Все добре.
Добрий день, мене звуть Ольга Таманова, я рада вітати.
Good morning, my name is Oleg Kotenko, and I want to thank everybody who joins us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's been 10 years of the war, and today is day 457 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor, and now we will be talking about a very important topic, very important for all of us. We will be talking about return of those missing, and specifically those missing under special circumstances. I want to introduce our speaker today. It's Oleg Kotenko, Commissioner for Persons Missing in Special Circumstances. Good morning, Mr. Oleg. Also, I would like to introduce your team. You, dear colleagues, will be able to ask questions from them later. Oleg Khoroshikh, advisor to the Commissioner for Persons Missing in Special Circumstances, and Nataliya Babijchuk, advisor to the Commissioner for Persons Missing under Special Circumstances, Alexei Yukov and Dmitro Dorogi, press secretary, advisor on media issues, and Anastasia Khoroshevska, coordinator and the representative of the Commissioner in Kiev region. So, Mr. Oleg, we can proceed to the topic of our today's conversation. We will be talking about the return of the bodies, the locations the search is going on at, and the work of the rescue teams. Good morning. I would like to start with the fact that the topic that we will be discussing, the subject of our work, it's very difficult. It's very difficult for those who deal with that issue directly, and for the relatives, for the families of those who expect their close ones to be brought back. They rely on us. They want their relatives to be found the quickest possible. I've prepared a small presentation today. I will not pay a lot of attention to it. It contains figures. You as a journalist, you have this presentation on hand. You can see the figures by yourselves, but I want to tell you about the way the work is going on, what we face, to make sure that we find a person in the quickest way possible. Also, I will tell you what the families should do, what should be their input. I also want to focus my attention on what was done within the last year, the launch of the register, the law on genome examination. Those are very important issues in our work, and also they are important for the families of the missing ones. Well, it's the regulation according to which I am commissioned to do what I'm doing. It was adopted a year ago, so it's been 1 year since the beginning of my work, and I will be telling you what was done within that year. The search teams of the Commissioner for the Persons Missing in Special Circumstances. Well, according to the law, I can have such teams. It means that the search teams, they start searching for people in the occupied territories, those who were most likely to have died in certain location. Alexei Yukov, one of the commanders of such teams, is present here. If you have more questions, he will be able to tell you in detail how the things are going on, because the 7 teams that were created, they work very close to the forward edge of the battle area, because now as we deoccupy the territories, You know that we advance in Bakhmut, not in the city of Bakhmut itself, but at the flanks. So every day we advance, and every day we have to pick up the bodies of our guys who deceased. They died while defending the area, and their bodies should be withdrawn from the area, and we want to have it done in the quickest way possible, those who perished there. Such teams work in Kharkiv, Donetsk regions. We also name Luhansk region, but Bilogorivka is a Luhansk region. It's a small settlement in Luhansk region. We work there, and there's yet another team working there. We also work in Zaporizhia. In Zaporizhia direction, there is a Dnipro team working. We also work in Mykolaiv region and Kherson region. All the teams on a daily basis go out on a mission to search for bodies of those missing in action. So the work of our search teams is a very serious work. You know, everything is densely mined. There are examples when people die while looking for the bodies of those dead, because again, everything is quite densely mined, and it's a very complicated work. On top of that, the forward edge of the battle area and the adjacent areas are being constantly shelled. I visited one of those locations personally recently. I keep seeing it with my own eyes. I know the way it happens. I know what our search teams risk with, so I have huge respect to them. They are in place, they work. As to the figures, I will tell you the figures a little bit later. The joint register. So in the beginning of May, the joint register started operating for the persons missing under special circumstances. It's a historic event because before the launch of this register, the work was more complicated, and we've made a long way to have it launched. So it started working in coordination with the Ministry of Internal Affairs. We know there are people coming to us to have their close ones added to this register. The people then get excerpts from the register, and I want to say that the families of those who are looking for their relatives and everybody who address national police with the applications and reports of the missing persons and the office of the commissioner, they are all on this register now. They are all there. It's more than 23,000 people. It does not necessarily mean that all those people were missing in special circumstances. So when we produce the excerpt upon the application from the families, we try to verify to what extent this person should be included into that register, whether they were gone missing under special circumstances or not special circumstances. But almost 99% of those who report, they get such excerpts. Why such excerpts are necessary? First of all, it's about accounting, and then it's about the status. The status, which is officially approved by the state. When persons have this excerpt on hand, they can count on the pension for loss of the family feeders. So this excerpt is necessary for the families to obtain the financial support, financial aid. So again, the register has been launched. There were a lot of journalists. I was visiting TV channels, radio, where I was telling what kind of register is that, how it works, and if you still have questions, you may ask me, and I will be most likely able to answer them. The preliminary sampling of DNA, that's a very important law in our country. What happens to the DNA examination, DNA tests now, and how we can work with the central government and with the special services, law enforcement bodies, how this law will work. You know, when people were going for war, they were not able to sample their DNA because there was no law in effect. No one was having account of them. So when the problem has arisen, the relatives had to submit their DNA samples so they could be matched with those diseases, so we can understand whether it's really a member of their family who was killed in action. So in the end of 2022 there was a law adopted, and it's now stipulates that it's better to have the DNA sampled by a serviceman themselves when they go to war, and then the DNA of the person who was killed in action may match with those of the relatives, and this DNA examination will be happening quite quicker, and we don't need to have the members of their families involved in this process to this extent that we used to have. So the law started working. The Ministry of Internal Affairs is ready to sample the DNA to make the tests from their servicemen. I mean the State Bodyguard Service, the National Guard of Ukraine, and now they already have those tests. They have the specialists who do it, and there is a place for storage of DNA samples. Our military, they will be catching up shortly. There will be a short delay, but I hope the law will come into effect in Ukraine to the full extent. And I want to thank everybody who got involved in this process. I want to thank Irina Vereshchuk, who is in control of this issue, who works with this very diligently, and there are sessions, the meetings going on to discuss this issue on a weekly basis. So let's proceed to the figures. I don't really like to talk figures a lot because there are figures and there are human lives, you know. So just in case, we keep saying, just to make sure you understand what is the scope of work that we're doing. I cannot do it all on my own as a commissioner, so I rely on my team. My team is present here. Some of the persons are unable to be present here today because they work in the city of Poltava. Now we have a meeting with the families. Such meetings with the families, they are quite frequent. Almost every day we have meetings like that. Our representatives in the regions, they are in charge of such meetings, and one of such representatives for Kiev and Kiev region is currently here, Anastasia Grishevska. If you have any questions to her, you may ask those questions from her afterwards. So again, those meetings are going on a daily basis, almost on a daily basis. I meet people 3, sometimes 4 times a day. Sometimes it's like 1 or 2 or 3 families coming to those meetings, but during the meetings like this, thanks to the database that we maintain, we have an analytic department that is being headed by Oleg Khoroshikh. He is currently present in this studio. So we have quite a comprehensive information, if not comprehensive, so we have a lot of information about the people's possible whereabouts. Maybe people were gone missing, maybe the people were imprisoned. We know that yesterday there were 106 of our people liberated, and so you understand we had 98 families reporting to us. They were thinking of their relatives as of missing in action. So 90% of those who were exchanged, they usually are accounted as missing in action. So our regional representatives, they work with it along with our analysts, so we understand the whereabouts, and so we have understanding of the number of people who are currently being kept captive. For example, 70 of them, we didn't know about their whereabouts. It was a very pleasant surprise for their families that they have come back home. That's why we count on bringing the people back alive. But sometimes we have to pick up the bodies of our guys killed in action, so there will be another operation going on next week, and we will expect that those will be coming back whose location, whose whereabouts are known, because really we don't know whether they're alive or dead. I don't want to focus on figures, you can see them on the screen by yourself. So talking about our regional representatives, it it's only 20 of them now, and I hope that soon the number will grow to 24 or maybe up to 25, including Crimea. So all the representatives are professionals in what they're doing. They have offices in the regions, they have psychologists and lawyers working with them, the people who can be in charge of the questions that are asked by the families. Also, there is a council of churches, the chaplains in the regions, they work in coordination with us, they help in psychological rehabilitation of those families who report to us. All the phone numbers can be seen in the end of this presentation, the phones of our regional representatives. If anybody wants to report or apply with some issue, you can contact us, contact our regional representatives in the regions. So please report, make phone calls. So here are the contacts. I'll be wrapping up. I didn't want to take a lot of your time. I think there will be a number of questions, and I will be able to answer them in the professional manner. If I cannot, so I will give the floor to my colleagues. Mr. Oleg, the first question is about the register. You mentioned that it's almost 23,000 people who are considered to be missing in action. So who are those people? Are they military or are they civilians? Well, the register includes both military and civilians. It happens so that their names are added upon the reports of their families. So if sometimes we understand that the person is brought back home, but they just did not pick up when we were calling them, or they were not able to answer the phone, and we reported to the national police. So we added that person to the register as missing in action, and even if the person is found, they are still on the register with the remark that they are found and brought back. Well, the title is called Commissioner for the Persons Missing in Special Circumstances. So let's find out what is the special circumstances. Just explain it to the people. Well, the law says that special circumstances are battle operations, catastrophes and cataclysms and natural disasters. So everything which is related to circumstances like that is considered to be special circumstances. For example, a person reports that their relative is missing. They went out of the home and never came back, but it happened before the beginning of the full-scale invasion. So we understand that there is such a report, but the person is not considered to be missing in special circumstances. For example, if you remember, there was an earthquake in Turkey. There were people from Ukraine staying there for that time, and it's our responsibility. We were looking for them, so as long as they're not found, the responsibility is vested in our state emergency service and in us as well. We control the search of those missing under circumstances like that. You know, there was a lot of debris to be cleared in Dnipro and other cities of Ukraine where people ended up dead under the debris, and until we find all of them, until we pull out all the corpses, they are considered to be missing in action. And in the same way, it's about the military. If no one knows about their whereabouts, they are considered to be missing in action. So getting back to the register, is all the information that was available to you and to Ministry of Internal Affairs, is it all added to the register? Or do you keep adding information? Well, yeah, we added all the information, but you know, this figure, it can be bigger or it can be smaller. For example, we liberated 106 people, so it will not decrease for that number, but there will be a remark that they are brought back. So if the figure is bigger, it doesn't mean that we've just picked up that page. We will see the number of those missing in action for the whole period of war. Okay, so out of those 23,700, how many are found and brought back? Yeah, it's more than 1,000. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions, Please, the floor is yours. Ukrinform, can you please tell us what is the situation with the equipment necessary for identification of the bodies, and are the refrigerators sufficient for transportation of the bodies? Thank you for this question. It's a very interesting question because 1 year ago the situation with what you've mentioned was quite catastrophic. So let's segregate the refrigerators with which our rescue teams work. For example, the rescue teams, they are present not only in the commissioner's office, there is a general staff, and in CIMIC headquarters they have refrigerators too. We work in coordination with them, and the national police has refrigerators like this. So it's not only 7 our teams who deals with that across the whole country. Every this law enforcement agency, they have such refrigerators, they deal with this, and thanks to the support of our international colleagues, they helped us a lot. We now have sufficient number of refrigerators. For example, we don't have problems with the refrigerators right now, so each team has smaller refrigerators, and those present here for the time being, we have, although we are equipped with the refrigerators, there are railway stations equipped with the refrigerators. We keep the bodies of our deceased heroes there until the DNA match is confirmed. So there were refrigerators, but they were not paid for, but thanks to ICRC they are paid for now. So all the refrigerator stations in Kiev region, they were all paid for. There is an agreement for the payment for the next year. So everything goes normal in this area, I would like to say. But to have it all rectified, there were a lot of meetings, legal documents to make it start working. I've seen that problem last year when I've picked 160 bodies of the servicemen of Azov regiment, and I've seen the condition of the bodies that we brought back, and it came to us as a surprise that there is no place to keep those bodies, so we were keeping them in the morgues first, and then we've solved this problem, and I'm quite happy about that. I have to mention right away that according to the legislation we can only keep the body in the refrigerator for 1 year, and then there should be a temporary burial. There was a land plot allocated, we work on it for half a year to have this land plot allocated for temporary burial until the match of the DNA. And right away I'll tell you that it will be the next question, why DNA may not match, because there were no relatives left to give to provide a DNA sample. This is the problem happening to the civilians. Mostly they don't know whether they should provide their DNA for sampling. And another example is when DNA sampling is quite difficult because we only bring not pieces of the body, not the full body, and such DNA testing only happens in 4 countries. So we're about to sign a memorandum with those countries. It's called archaeological DNA testing. It's quite difficult to identify, but we keep working on that. It's about the refrigerators and the work which is going on. You already mentioned the international partners. I know there are agreements signed between them. So what is the specific help that they're providing to you? What is the support they're providing to you, to your work? You're talking about international organizations. Yes, right. Well, they give us the tools that we can work with. They give us the sleeves, for example, the bags. So I'm currently talking about ICRC because there is not a lot of organizations the commissioner's office works with. So support of the relatives, the DNA sampling abroad, we don't have a mechanism to make it happen so far. Financial support, and I can go on and on by that list, but those are the principal areas they help us in. So talking about the search for civilians, did you have cases in your practice when you were looking for a person whose name was on the register for a long time and it turned out that the person left? For example, yeah, if you can give us the percentage So it's 90% the people were either deported and then they got in touch, or we were able to find them either in Russia or elsewhere abroad. It's a huge percentage of those people whom we deem killed, and it turns out they are alive. Well, that's about the civilians. The percentage of foundlings is quite big there. We have more questions on the floor. Well, the International Committee for Missing in Action started working with us, and I mean in Ukraine many people are interested about the work of that commission. So how do you cooperate with them, and what is your advice to the families, how to report to that commission and how to coordinate the activities with them? Well, I don't know how that process was launched. It happens when an international organization comes to Ukraine. They enter into a memoranda or enter into agreements with some agency in Ukraine, some government agency. For the time being, for what I know, this commission has not signed any memoranda. They work as an NGO here who wants to support us somehow. Then, when we talk about the support, we have to understand to what extent this or that organization can help us in Ukraine. They only deal with DNA sampling. They want to take DNA samples from the relatives and then to have those DNA tests matched with the people killed in action. But before any documents are signed in Ukraine, no one will allow us to take DNA samples from the guys killed in action. So when we say that they work, it would be better to word it like they are present. So when the question arises, who made more DNA tests with the International Commission for Missing in Action or the state of Ukraine, I can tell you for sure that Ukraine did like 10 times more, dozens of times more testings, and Ukrainian specialists can train a lot of people around the world now. And talking about the equipment, thanks to our international partners, we have laboratories that the International Commission may only dream about. We have all of it available because we have support from our international partners, because we ended up in a very difficult situation after the 24th of February. So when the commission is in place, I know they talk a lot to the civil organizations, with the mass media, and for more than half a year I was communicating with them myself, but I don't quite understand honestly what they can help us with. If they find something they can help us with, I will only appreciate them, because I proposed to have a memorandum signed between us and them. They refused the memorandum, but they asked for a diplomatic status. I tried to explain to them that to do DNA testing they don't need a diplomatic sample, there is something else about it, but I will sort it out. I know that this commission is present in Ukraine. They visit a lot of our government bodies, they communicate that issue to us, but it's about time they start doing something. Please.
Sir, good morning. Are foreign fighters on your register, say those from the US or the UK? And secondly, how many children are you looking for? And could that include those taken to Russia?
І тут, мабуть,
Maybe I will have to add something. During the last return, we've seen the information that there were bodies of the International Legion fighters brought back. So, okay, look, to be added to the register, it is necessary to submit the request, to submit an application to be added to the register. It doesn't necessarily mean that the government does not document all the people from the Foreign Legion who were missing in action and don't get in touch. Yes, we have a list of their names, so we cooperate with almost all the embassies of those who were missing in action. We have reports from the embassies, and when we understand what's going on and where the bodies are, we do everything we can to have those bodies brought back to the territory under control of Ukrainian government, so we can hand them over to the embassies for their burial abroad. As to the children, the situation is different. The deported are not added to the register unless they report it to us. If there is a report in the National Police of Ukraine, such people are really added to the register. So the children cannot report by themselves. So if the relatives submit such reports, the children are being added to the register of the missing persons, but it's a very small percentage. They don't end up on the register because there is nobody to report for them. About the bodies, yes, we have returned bodies recently. I communicated with American Embassy and Turkish Embassy because I know whose bodies were handed over to us, and it will be looking like that. The bodies will be registered and documented, and then they will be handed over to the embassies. It's no problem. Roman Koharuk, Information Agency Nation. So what's the scope of your work that you contemplate after the occupation of the left bank of Kherson region, Luhansk region, Donetsk region, and Crimea? Do you have sufficient resource, or you will need some additional resource? Thank you. It's a very good question. Look, we're preparing for that. If I'm saying that I only have 7 search teams, it doesn't mean that that's it, because we cooperate with all the search teams available in our country. So the scope, well, the most difficult will be the work in the regions where the active battles were going on. For example, like Mariupol and Volnovakha. For example, we have now about 1,000 locations in Mariupol where people were killed. I don't know the numbers, but as soon as the territory is deoccupied and our investigators from National Police and prosecutors' office will start dealing with it, we'll cope with it eventually. For example, Izum, you remember we found a mass grave there. We didn't know that there were civilians there, but it happened so. But there were 452 burials plus the burial of 17 of our military. It was right by its side, and we made it within a month, so to say, because you cannot just pull out the body somehow. You have to work very meticulously. Sometimes in the front lines we do it very quickly, but when you have an opportunity to work diligently on the burial site, it's a very complex work, and our rescue teams, our search teams, they are properly trained in that, so it will take some time. We have more questions.
Steve Kleiman, Pacific Rex, Commissioner Kotenko, good to see you again. Following up on DNA technology, could you talk more about mobile DNA laboratories and the countries that might be contributing this technology, and also, if you can, specific companies from abroad that are contributing this technology, specifically for DNA identification and mobile DNA laboratories?
Well, it's a lot of questions. Let me start with the last ones. About the DNA laboratories, it's more about our Ministry of Internal Affairs, who works with the mobile DNA labs. I control that issue, but I cannot give you the exact numbers where they were coming to, who was providing them. The only thing I know about the mobile DNA labs is there was an agreement with Switzerland. There was a memorandum signed to support the Office of the Commissioner for Persons Missing in Special Circumstances, and it was also signed by the representatives of our Ministry of Internal Affairs. And for what I understand, the laboratories that they were in need of, they got it. What is the name of those specific, the manufacturer, what were the companies, what were more questions?
Не записав. Ага.
I'm wondering if there are specific manufacturers, foreign companies that have assisted with DNA identification or mobile technology?
Я знаю, що це країна Польща точно.
I know for sure it's Poland. I know for sure it's Switzerland. I will add, well, I cannot say anything on top of that. Maybe some more Western countries. I'm not sure. Another question. Igor Bondarenko, channel 1+1. You said that there are 8,000 people found out of more than 23,000 on the register. So what percentage of people turned out to be alive? So we work on this figure for more than 1 year, but it's about 60-65%. I keep telling this number, so you understand that 60-65% of those we search for, they come back alive. I think it's a very good percentage. And when some Prigozhin tells us that he killed 20,000 in Ukraine, so I know more or less that people end up in captivity, and I hope that they will be coming back home shortly. Dear questions, more questions. You said that search for those missing in the front lines is going on very quickly. So can you tell us about the mechanisms? What are the people? How quickly we should work under the conditions of battle operations? So okay, I will tell you about the process, how it's going on from the very first minute. For example, a person does not get in touch, then we have a system in place thanks to our commander Zaluzhny. I agreed it with him to have every unit in the front line to be complemented with the evacuation team, no matter whether they are under rotation or not. So first, when we deal with this search, it works for more than half a year. Our reconnaissance teams, the drones, they see what's going on, they see what is the number of people who were probably captured as prisoners or died in action. We see that location in our interactive map. The military reported to us. If we have no opportunity to pick up the body will end up in the place where people or a person was probably killed. So after the occupation, our teams are following the avant-garde of the offense, because we need to pick up the bodies and get them transported to the morgues. For example, if the territory is deoccupied and we cannot pick up the body, and then we'll lose the territory again, you know, we cannot pick up the body once again, because it's a war. We can retreat sometimes, but we have to pick up the bodies right away. So we have teams like the team of Alexei, who is present in this studio, and the way they work. So as soon as we understand there is some advance, we see the location is liberated, we have vehicles going there to the spot, we pick up the bodies from there. And talking about the Donetsk region, so in fact we're talking about Avdiivka, Mariinka and Bakhmut direction at the moment. So we carry them to the places where the morgues are available. We hand over the bodies to them, we make protocols, the bodies are being inspected. The Ministry of Defense team then picks up the bodies, they transport them to Donetsk. Oh, I'm sorry, that's a Freudian thing. So yeah, they really transported to the Dnipro or Kharkiv with the support of volunteers organizations, or to the places the bodies will be buried. The only thing that impedes us to do that is the constant shell, and we could work way quicker, but for the time being it's not possible to do so. Dear colleagues, do you have any more questions on the floor? Now that we don't have these questions, I want to thank you for this very important information. I'm reminding you, joining us was Oleg Kotenko, the Commissioner for Persons Missing in Special Circumstances. And I'm reminding you, our next briefing will be at 12:30, and we will be talking about the prospects of Ukraine regarding the Ukraine's accession to NATO in the eve of the summit to be happening in Vilnius shortly, so stay tuned. Work together for our victory and glory to Ukraine. Thank you, dear colleagues.